We are here with Eliane Sterchi, who is the event manager for Gourmet Galle, and it's a culinary festival that's happening in the South Coast since January, and now Eliane says that we are in the last 2-3 weeks of it, and there's a lot of exciting things lined up. So, if you can tell us kind of a preamble, how has it been from January? What are the memorable moments and highlights, etc., so people can get to know what it was all uh, about?
Thanks a lot, Melanie, for having me on. Yeah, we're very excited about our first Gourmet Galle Festival.
Mm-hmm.
The Gourmet Galle Festival is part of the Galle Literary Festival. It's a sister festival. As in the past, the Galle Literary Festival has had many food events, chefs coming down, and Geoffrey Dobbs decided that it was time to expand the food offerings, the gourmet part of it. Hence, Gourmet Galle, the inception of Gourmet Galle happened. It is a 12-week festival. We started in the middle of January, and since the middle of January, we've had a host of chefs flying in from London, from Singapore, from Sydney, and lots of other places, including Ireland. And amazing chefs have flown in. We are actually impressed with the stable of chefs that we've attracted this year. We managed to get some incredibly popular, successful chefs. We had a 1 Michelin star chef who was James Lowe. We've had a 2 Michelin star chef, which was Rishi Nalendra. So all in all, we picked different venues along the southern coast, and we matched the chefs with the venues. So it was a bit of a jigsaw puzzle: who comes in when, where they cook. And that was all the planning that went on behind the scenes to get the festival off the ground. So we've had James Lowe from London, Otama Kerry from Sydney, Cynthia Shamagalingham from London, Jeremy Lee from London, Mark Hicks from the UK, Rishi Nalendra, Paul Flynn from Ireland. This weekend we've got Amanda Yin. Next weekend we have Peter Kuruweta, which I think a lot of you know here in Sri Lanka. And then we close the whole event on the 30th of March with a much more casual beach party, just to thank all our sponsors, our venues, and everybody that's been a part of the whole festival. We're also very excited with the chefs that have worked with our imported chefs, as it were. Yeah. So a lot of chefs in the kitchens had exposure by working together with some of these top chefs that have 30, 40 years of experience in the hospitality and food industry. So that's one way that we really feel that we have kind of given back. We have offered masterclasses on the weekends. Every Sunday we've had the different chef has had an event sharing his tips and knowledge. And I hope, again, obviously to tease a bit of next year, that we'll do a bit more with that next year. Because those have been incredibly insightful things that you don't learn in a cookery book or online. They really have shared a lot of their experience. So to kind of just summarize how I feel as managing this event for the first year is we are really, really delighted with the response. And we really look forward to not only next year, the years to come. On top of just the food, it's also promoting Sri Lanka. And that was very much a part of what the event is supposed to be about. But I'll let you ask me a question instead of me babbling on, because I'm sure you have other questions for me.
No, I think you gave it all in a nutshell, but I just kind of want to excite people on the things that interest them. I think, like you said, when we were watching this event kind of come to life, people were very receptive towards it already. Like we would push the content, but people were always ready to take it up, breathe it in, take part, and interest in it has been kind of very organic as well, right? But I just want to ask you a few questions to kind of spark interest and awareness on it. So earlier there was a Galle Lit Fest, and then this was started out this year, and bringing global chefs to Galle and all. What was I know you spoke about it earlier, but what was the vision behind that kind of collaboration?
Well, I think the vision behind it is that the popularity of the food events at the Galle Literary Festival has always been really high on the list when people come. At the Galle Lit Fest, they get to meet the authors and they have an incredible meal, which is hosted with the author giving away story time and storytelling to do with literature.
Yeah.
And given the fact that food has become, I mean, we've always eaten, we all, over the years, but it's just become such a, people go for food festivals. People are interested in food. Sri Lankan food, again, is another part of the festival, is the fact that that's why we invited quite a few Sri Lankan chefs to the festival to highlight the success of Sri Lankan chefs overseas.
Yeah.
One of the topics at the moment is how Sri Lankan food is trending. It's a high trend in London, in Sydney, in
New York,
Singapore,
right?
all over the world.
Yeah.
Whereas before it probably was bunched into a bit more the Indian subcontinent. So Sri Lanka is kind of getting its moment in the sun with its food. I mean, people understand what hoppers are, what string hoppers are, and also Mel, to kind of part of the brief, or one of the main briefs to the chefs, was to encourage and highlight Sri Lankan ingredients.
Yeah.
That was the real thing. So we didn't want the chef to come here and just make a chicken and ham pie that he makes at home when he's doing his chicken and ham pie at the the lovely restaurant in London. So they were encouraged to use local ingredients. And it was interesting for me to see the ingredients that they actually found exciting or were amazed about. They were given a list beforehand with ingredients that are in season, things to use, things that are not available here, so that they had some type of brief before they came here. Because a lot of the chefs, let me see, at least half of them have never been to Sri Lanka before. So to understand the ingredients was, it was a hard kind of knock, and things like flour is different in this country, and the humidity makes things like making a pasta different. That's what Otama shared with us. But the ingredients that really stood out was the Sri Lankan pumpkin.
Okay.
They all love the Sri Lankan pumpkin. So James Lowe had a pumpkin soup, and all the guests at the dinner were like, "Oh my goodness, that pumpkin soup! It was so amazing." And he had to go around explaining how he'd done it and what his pumpkin soup, pumpkin seeds. So the pumpkin, everybody just thought was amazing. The chefs that had not been here before, the squid, the local squid, they say it's so soft. Obviously very fresh because we were cooking from using the fish markets around the southern coast. I mean, we all know Sri Lankan mud crab exports well. We know stuff about murunga, we know coconut, we know cinnamon, but those were the two that were just quite unusual because they're quite a basic ingredient. So part of the festival was to highlight the ingredients, to highlight Sri Lanka as a tourist venue was also very much on the list. We started off quite late with getting the message out there because it was January when we kicked off. So hopefully next year there's a lot more inbound tourists, because that's also part of it, is to promote Sri Lanka as a venue for food, because people now in London, Sydney, New York, Singapore know Sri Lankan food. And so they will make a trip to come specifically to Sri Lanka for the tourism, but they know, oh my God, it's an amazing food festival going on. We can tie it in.
Yeah, thank you for stepping into that question on the culinary exposure that the chefs got and how they infuse Sri Lankan ingredients into it. And I think it's interesting because, and also the fact that while we are always talking about culinary and entertainment and everything, Colombo has become the focal point. But here to kind of bring them all to Galle, and I remember you saying that they will not be, it will be all Galle centered, that they'll be working in and around with the masterclass and the dinners, and they come days in advance, isn't it? Like to source the ingredients locally, source the items they need for their masterclass and the dinner. And I think that is some kind of experience for them and the locals, isn't it?
Oh, totally. As in, we fly them in about 4 days before the event. They get to go to obviously seafood is quite a high on the list coming here. You're not going to be promoting beef or venison because it's just not the best. It's not the best here. So we do seafood. We do vegetables, fruit markets. The first chef that arrived was James Lowe, who'd been to Japan, but came from Japan on his way back to London. He's got a 1 Michelin star restaurant. One of the first things I did with him, because it was durian season, I took him to try durian. And what I liked about him was, again, a lot of these chefs, he was in his, he was a younger chef. He was actually very open to it and didn't go, oh my God, it's too this, it's too that. And he really enjoyed it. So they were very open to trying new things. He was interested in, I know, the custard apples, soursop. So some of them were very interested in the different varieties of vegetables and fruits, and others already had a strong background in what is available here. So they didn't have to go through the whole learning curve.
Yeah.
So for us, it was interesting just to see how different chefs picked out different elements. The other one that everybody loved here was curd, buffalo curd.
I can imagine.
Yeah, very popular. Rishi made an amazing buffalo curd parfait. So it's kind of like an ice cream, but it's got gelatine. And others hung it and used it as a savory item, which is what Cynthia did. Talking about pumpkin, it was Mark Hicks. Mark Hicks who did a chocolate and pumpkin brownie.
Oh, I can't even.
So
I've seen this. Okay, lovely.
He added pumpkin to the chocolate, so it wasn't as dense or as rich. So, I mean, they've all had they've all had a lot of fun. I mean, one of the chefs said, oh my God, it was the most amazing week of my life. Because he'd been taken out of the UK in the middle of winter, come here, we do look after them very well. We kind of entertain them. And then they have an amazing dinner, which they have to work pretty hard for. And they are in the kitchens, they're sourcing, they're prepping. But we've also had amazing, amazing support from the venues that we've worked with and the kitchen staff. And I can tell you a few of the the chefs would be very happy to take some of these kitchen staff back to the UK, other places, but they have visa problems. But they would say, I'd be very happy to give them a 3-month experience in our kind of 1-2 Michelin star restaurants.
Yeah, so it's interesting because we have these international chefs coming here, not to Colombo, but to Galle, and kind of staying and living and kind of, breathing in all that. And, they will go and be able to give that kind of positive word of mouth about the kind of exposure that we offer here. Peaceful and supportive and diverse. Is that something that you saw happening when you were working with them, and, their positivity towards what was happening in Galle? Is that something you could say?
Absolutely. I mean, that was also part of the message. Once you expose anybody to a different place or different experience, and again, if it's positive, they will carry that with them for the rest of their lives. Okay. So these chefs are going back to the different parts of the world, but I can promise you that they will be talking about their stay in Sri Lanka. They have immense followings of Instagram followers and others. And they will talk about it. I think there was an article last week in one of the dailies in the UK, just talking about one of the invitees for Gourmet Galle, saying the food here, the people here, and everything he experienced while he was here was just amazing. And he was then picking out some of the restaurants in London that we'd invited. So Cynthia from Rambutang and Karan from Hoppers. So that's already had positive feedback in international press.
So it's a kind of butterfly effect, isn't it?
Definitely. And what I'm also, once it started, as the Gourmet Galle website and or Instagram, I was getting chefs getting in touch with us. And not just any chef, chefs that were really reputable in their field. They'd already heard about it.
Yeah.
We're not declaring our lineup yet for next year, but as in there are a lot of people that are very interested, because we managed to make the chefs happy, the venues happy, the sponsors happy, and the guests happy. So it's how we do it next year. Is it all going to be around the South Coast? Who knows? We might branch out a bit more. But we do have lots of ideas, and we are really, truly pleased with the response we've had.
And just to kind of highlight people like the unique aspect, that unique way you all govern this, because there were masterclass held in certain places and the dinners were in like a scatter of key locations in the South Coast. Like each chef had their own kind of turf. Can we highlight on these geographical locations, the establishments?
Yeah, absolutely. So the brief for Gourmet Galle was, even though it says Gourmet Galle, the Galle Lit Fest is in the Galle Fort.
Yeah.
I mean, that specifically is around the Galle Fort. So
Classes.
Galle, we were given a larger brief, as in the southern coast.
Yeah.
And given the last couple of years, tourism has been down. And in the meantime, we've had a lot of amazing venues open up or not get the exposure because we haven't had the tourism coming through. So we picked venues quite, on hilltops, on the beach, overlooking paddy fields. We picked private venues that don't normally open up unless you book the whole villa. We booked some of the larger places. We booked places on Galle Lake. So each event was also supposed to be a different event. It wasn't like this is exactly the same. It's going to look the same. It's going to feel the same. Each chef was allowed to explore their own creativity. And hence the chef would match the venue as well, as much as that was possible. And so that kind of, so again, each time, and we did have some repeat customers, so each time it was different. And one of the things we also wanted to do was, we didn't want to do big arrangements of flowers. Our arrangements, because it was a food festival, was food. So we had one decoration was coconuts, another one was cinnamon, because we were on a cinnamon plantation. We had chilies, we had big kind of pumpkins. So it really was a celebration of food and the produce in Sri Lanka. And I think going forward, I think that should always be a very strong part of it.
Like I think it's interesting because when you have you have chefs in having dinner, organizing, their curated dinners in different moods and ambience, kind of different backdrops, setting different kinds of moods and all that, kind of coupling with the flavor that the person's introducing, then kind of having that kind of monotonous same exposure throughout all the weekends. And I think that's a genius idea to kind of sustain a festival for so long, right?
Yes.
And kind of pitching it also to the audiences.
So it is a different event. It was a different event for 12 weeks. The master classes, that was picked to be in the Galle Fort, so there was continuity there, rather than having, if there was an event down in Veligama and then next week there was an event in Talpe, at least you knew on a Sunday there was a masterclass at this time. And we did have quite a few chefs that did repeat, come and join us a few weekends. And it's just the little tips that they learned that I think, I was there for all of them, and I just learned so much.
Yeah, Peter Kuruita, that's what everybody is kind of familiar with. Like I've been hearing all about it from everyone asking me, so you have to tell me properly.
Peter Kuruita, as you know, here is a superstar here. How he has promoted Sri Lankan cuisine overseas. I think he was one of the first ambassadors to really push out Sri Lankan cuisine in a modern take. We all know the flavors and the tastes of Sri Lankan cuisine. So he has managed to, he is an ambassador for Sri Lankan food. Yes, he's based in Australia, but with his television shows, he is probably known around the world.